As of recent, the highly anticipated version 3.x Resonators were revealed, and in similar fashion to our version 2.x Resonators, it's almost certain these are the characters we can expect over the first couple of updates from 3.0 onwards. In addition, if we are going exactly off the 2.x character revealed from last year, we can expect for all of these characters to be 5-star Resonators, alongside the fact there likely will be 1 or 2 characters that release in between these characters, similar to Cantarella releasing just before Zani, even though she wasn't revealed before version 2.0. So with that said, and in anticipation of these characters releasing soon, I'll be going over some kit speculations regarding these characters to have a rough idea on what to expect, the potential release schedule alongside the most probable 3.0 characters to drop, then I'll be wrapping it up with their overall value as our brand new Resonators of the Lynae region. As always, if you are interested in more WutheringWaves content, would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now, kicking this off with the characters that most likely will release in version 3.0, purely based off the meta and the aesthetics from the drip marketing, it does seem like Lynae could be our newest Spectro DPS releasing next update. Even more so with the fact that we haven't exactly received a Spectro character since Zani back in version 2.3, which means it would be reasonable for version 3.0 to finally be releasing our new Spectro unit. However, even with possibly being a Spectro DPS, she most likely isn't going to be replacing Zani as a Spectro Frazzle DPS, since that would be a bit too soon and is probably going to be more of a standard Spectro DPS like Jinshi. But even with that said, she is certainly going to be a top tier damage dealer and will introduce some interesting abilities. Now, Lynae's drip marketing in specific does show some graffiti in the back, and from her design does seem to be more like a rebel within the academy, which can lead to having an interesting personality depending on how well they execute it. Though aside from that, it means we could possibly expect some explosive and vibrant abilities with graffiti effects, which would be cool to see, and especially when paired with that rebellious personality, as it could lead to some of the most fun and chaotic looking abilities in their game. From her design alone, I do definitely expect many players to be interested in Lynae, but from the fact that she is going to be a version 3.0 DPS, it means she should hold a lot of value, similar to Carlotta's release back in version 2.0, ultimately meaning even if you aren't a fan of her design, she is also going to shine through her kit and the abilities she does possess. Now, with Mornye in specific, it's fair to say she probably has one of the most unique designs within the game. Perhaps through some sort of accident we will find out about, she did lose her legs and now has a pair of prosthetics juiced from some sort of energy, which does hint towards the crazy tech Lynae does possess and likely will lead to some interesting lore with Mornye. Fancy legs aside, and once again going off the current state of the meta, it's very possible that Mornye is going to be a Glacier unit releasing in 3.0, and especially since we haven't exactly received a new Glacier unit since Carlotta. In addition to that, and going off our most recent release in version 2.8, Mornye is quite likely going to be a negative status unit due to the release of Chisa being a support for negative statuses. With Chisa's release, it was pretty much confirming the fact we would receive at least one negative status unit in version 3.0, so it could really be either one of Lynae or Mornye, but with Lynae edging towards being a Spectre unit with her design, it leads to Mornye then being the negative status unit, and so will have abilities based on the Glacial Chafe mechanic. With this mechanic, it could lead to Mornye being a great DPS overall, considering Glacial Chafe stacks do lead to more damage being dealt, but will also reduce the target's movement speed, allowing for it to be easier to dodge lethal attacks and to clear bosses with less difficulty. Additionally, just like Lynae, we can definitely expect some interesting abilities design-wise given the whole stellar aesthetic in the background from her official drip marketing, paired with her more mature look as well as likely being a professor from the academy. Aesthetically, Mornye is going to be incredible, and with that alone, I could see her being quite a popular character to look forward to in version 3.0. But of course, we'll also have a unique kit as our next potential negative status DPS. Now, stepping into version 3.1 onwards, there is a little less certainty, but pretty much like with Brant's release in version 2.1, I do believe one of the 3.1 Resonators will be Luuk, as he is currently the only male Resonator that has been revealed. Similar to Brant, it makes a bit more sense to not release him too late into the version 3.x updates, since then there will be enough time to release another 1 or 2 male characters towards the end of the 3.x updates. Also, it kinda carries on the hype immediately after version version 3.0, and judging from the amount of likes each character has received on Twitter, it does add up since it seems like he is the most popular character that players are looking forward to. Now in terms of his kit, it does seem like Luuk is going to be a professor from the academy and specializes in chemistry, but also from the quote, should that molten gold drip, it might hint at the fact he could be a fusion unit. So with that considered, it might lead to Luuk being capable of dealing solid damage, alongside potentially providing buffs towards his allies in the form of his serums and mixtures he creates. In other words, and funny enough, he could be quite similar to Brant in terms of his kit's abilities. But that doesn't mean he has to replace Brant, and especially with the fact he could actually turn out to be a fusion burst DPS. Again, with the fact Chisa did just release as our premium negative status support, I wouldn't be surprised if they did release multiple negative status characters pretty close to each other. But then again, it might just interfere with the value of our 3.0 negative status DPS. Either way, Luuk does still seem to be leaning towards potentially being a fusion DPS purely based off that quote, and considering his design, he might be capable of some explosive abilities akin to a burst damage dealer, and so may lead to having quite a fun playstyle. Now, if you do remember the 2.x drip marketing and the reception Phoebe did kinda receive, she wasn't really amongst the characters players were looking forward to the most. Fast forward to her release, she did become quite a popular character that a lot of players, including myself, did want to pull. Of course, the fact being a Spectral Frazzle DPS did help, but her personality and design as a character was pretty great and became a lot more likable than her initial reveal. The reason I bring this up is purely because it seems like it will be the same case for Sigrika, which does look interesting design-wise and especially with that leg tattoo, but in comparison to the others, she likely isn't what players are looking forward to the most. So with that said, it's reasonable to believe she is going to be quite valuable overall, given her design alone isn't going to pull players in like other characters. That alongside the fact she does look more like a country girl that's just entered the academy, it would be fair to believe she could be an error resonator with general supportive capabilities alongside dealing solid DPS. The countryside, for me at least, being open and free does link to Aero, so that alongside the fact we actually haven't received a premium general support ever since the Shorekeeper, it might lead to Sigrika holding quite a lot of universal value with being able to provide various buffs that can benefit many characters, specifically crit rate and crit damage buffs, and perhaps a brand new type of bonus or mechanic that can bring immense value and change up a character's playstyle. So all in all, it's definitely fair to be cautious with your Ashtrites when coming up to Sigrika, considering she will likely hold a lot more universal value and so would be someone you may want for your account. As for the final character, which is one a lot of players undoubtedly will be interested in, Lucilla is most likely going to be the last character to expect from the ones that were revealed. But that isn't to say that she is definitely going to be releasing in version 3.2, since again, just like with Zani, there could be another character or two that released just before her. That way, it will just keep players on their feet and in anticipation for Lucilla, which has definitely swayed a lot of players already from her design alone. On the note of her design, she does seem to be either an actress or just someone heavily involved in cinematography, given the movie reel in the back of her drip marketing and the fact that she does look quite fashionable. Now that aside, and just from the vibe she gives off alongside her purple hair, it would be fair to believe she could be an electro resonator, and especially if 3.1 doesn't have another negative status DPS, Lucilla could end up as our electro flare dedicated DPS. With that said, it would boost Chisa's value even more and also mean she wouldn't exactly interfere with Augusta's value as our current best electro DPS, which is going to be convenient since it would take a lot for another standard electro DPS to offer more value than Augusta. So with having a very different playstyle, given she is going to apply stacks of electro flare on enemies and lead to electro rage being triggered, it does lead to Lucilla holding quite a bit of potential and certainly would have some interesting animations given her aesthetic. Above all, Lucilla might have some of the flashiest animations literally due to her abilities revolving around cinematography, paired with the design and kid potential is going to make her quite a popular character that I'm sure a lot of players are already looking forward to. Overall, each of these characters do show great potential towards being extremely valuable units and do all look great design-wise, which really isn't easy when they are going to be compared to the Rinascita reveal and even with the most recent Resonators from 2.5 onwards. Now, I do believe it's fair to mention, like with Carlotta specifically and her ability to fly a little longer than other characters, it might be something to expect from our 3.0 characters and the traversal mechanic within Lynae. I wouldn't be too concerned if that happened since there wasn't much much of a difference between Carlotta and other characters, but that would already allow the version 3.0 characters to hold a little more value in the region players will soon spend most of their time. Though with that aside, I personally don't expect these characters to power creep the 2.x characters that much. Perhaps they will provide a small performance boost over the current characters, and so with that being the case, it will allow characters we currently use to still be amazing from 3.0 onwards, but also would mean the 3.x characters will offer value through other means such as their animations and just how fun they would be to use. So all in all, the version 3.x characters do hold a lot of potential towards being a bunch of amazing characters. But till we do receive more information on their kits, it's fair to say they already have set the tone for Lynae Roy, alongside do aesthetically look great and do hold incredible potential. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, do drop a comment down below on who are you looking forward to the most between the 3.x characters. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.